Hey guys,
What's going on?
Hello.
I'm with Catherine and Caleb. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome
I'm
to our
excited.
beautiful
Studio.
studio.
There we
That's
go.
right. Thanks for coming and sweating with me. Guys, you guys know me. I'm most passionate about unengaged people that have never heard of the name of Christ, hearing it. And I have a podcast that I've used for other reasons, but it's my podcast, so I can do whatever I want with it, right? So I want to start having conversations with people that are engaged with that work, that are going out and trying to find people groups and trying to get the gospel to them. And today we were together, we were debriefing your time, and you shared with us about your time, and it was just a really encouraging thing to hear. And I was just thinking, I just hope a lot of other people can hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're here.
Cool.
So tell me how you guys spend your time.
Yeah.
You're on my team, so you
we're on
do
your
you
team.
go where I tell you to go.
That's right. We say yes, sir, and we
But
go.
beyond that,
Yeah, I mean, our role is specifically working amongst the unreached and unengaged people groups. And so our time is spent looking for them, Lord willing, finding them, sowing seeds of the gospel with them, and as we see fruit, following up, connecting them with other people on the field who can do more follow-up and discipleship. And we're just trying to see those last few UUPGs really connected with the gospel and take in the gospel where it hasn't been before.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's not as straightforward, and takes a lot of prayer from us, from people we know back at home, to help find these groups that haven't heard.
yeah, you said last few. So there's just a few left. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, a couple thousand left, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to do, and that ultimately is what moved us and motivated us to leave
Uh-huh.
friends and family and home and everything familiar is seeking to be obedient, to take the gospel not just from Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria, but to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
And to those last peoples, right, where there's still gospel barriers surrounding them and wanting to see them reached. So, yeah, still a long way to go. We're just playing a small part, but just trying to do that faithfully where we can right now.
So you said looking for them.
Mhm.
Why do we need to look for them? Why don't we know where they are?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's right.
All right. I mean, sin, for one thing, right? It has isolated people.
Uh-huh.
Oftentimes, I think people group divisions come from a sense of cultural pride, even, where some groups look down on others, and then some groups get either forgotten or just kind of shunned and pushed aside. And so then sometimes, right, that's a difference for the gospel to go in between those people. Either there's people in a high society who look down and don't want to be associated with the lower class, or, as is often the case, right, a lot of times the gospel brings help or hope and help to those people in the lower classes who see their need, know they're in a desperate situation, realize that this earth is not the best life that they can have. And so oftentimes those can be people that receive the gospel early, but then Christianity is looked down upon, this poor man's religion, and so it doesn't spread up either. And it's just so, I think, for a variety of reasons, whether that be socially, geographically, linguistically, all these different reasons are still barriers for why the gospel hasn't gone to everyone yet.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why we're still looking is because I think the church, sometimes we get comfortable and we're not always ready to do that hard thing, right? To cross the street to a different neighborhood where we don't know anybody. You know, we have a lot of friends, and it is more fun to hang out with those people. But it takes intentionality and hard work and facing rejection and awkwardness and hardship to continue to see the gospel advance.
Yeah. And I think coming from a context of America, I mean, we leave the house at 18. We move around. There's a lot of crossing of people, but then coming here, I mean, we've interacted with groups where they've never even traveled an hour outside of their village, and they're not planning on it. Whether that's, culturally, linguistically, financially, maybe they can't afford a bus ticket or a car ride. And frankly, a lot of times they don't even want to leave where they're from. And so we've interacted with groups where unless we went to them, we would have no idea that they were there. So it takes intentionality to try to find these people because they're not looking for us.
Yeah.
So we're not just going to bump into them. So we have to be intentional to go to them. So there's some groups where, we just don't know unless we try to find them.
Yeah. And the research is outdated, right? I mean, that's a lot of it, right? At one point, someone found these people, but it was a long time ago. So what is it now? Are they still there, right? And that's a lot of what you guys are going out and confirming. So you guys, you're married, right?
4 years.
Yep. Actually, just celebrated an anniversary, so 4 years.
All right, congratulations. And no kids.
Not yet.
And not yet, right? And you guys are, I mean, you're on the road, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? How does that work? I think a lot of people would be pretty intimidated to spend, how much time are you on the road, and what does that look like being a married couple on the road?
Yeah. Scheduling wise, we go 6 weeks on the road and then kind of 2 weeks back for training, resting, reporting. So, I mean, I don't know what that's like multiplied, but most of the time is on the road. So,
Yeah.
A lot of it is living out of just a backpack, staying in a lot of hotels or getting welcomed into a few people's homes. But I mean, it is hard, right? We are married 4 years and experienced life in a house and a dog and jobs and everything and
stability.
Good friends. I think living on the road really makes us have to believe that this world's not our home and that heaven is the ultimate destination. And so we have to keep that in mind because when we start to, I want stability. I just want this. Then trying to go find those people groups becomes a burden, something we don't want to do. It's an annoyance rather than this, heaven's the goal. And we want to invite other people to come in and join as we pursue that.
Yeah. So. And even, I mean, as a female, wanting a home, wanting to set up roots, settle down. It really does challenge us. Are we believing that heaven is our home, that heaven is the best place that we have to look forward to? And so we even read a psalm this morning that God is our dwelling place. He is our home. This earth will pass away very quickly, like we are but dust. And so as a woman who wants to, decorate and have cute Christmas things or Thanksgiving things, remembering that, no, it's worth it to live out of a backpack for a season. And honestly, I hope this affects our whole lives, that I'm not gathering earthly treasures and earthly things, but we're actually remembering, no, heaven is our home. That's where we will finally rest and enjoy God forever. So right now, we can move around and not be the most stable, but remembering God is our dwelling place. He is the one who gives us that strength.
So 9 months in, is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's good.
It's been hard, but it's been fun too, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think we're just saying in a short period of 2 years, I don't think you could have as much responsibility, freedom, and experience as what we're getting to do right now.
That's awesome.
You you even say, hey, go here, and we go. And that really is pretty much our direction. But we just do it, and you just kind of figure it out. And I think there's a lot of things in life that you just have to figure out. And it's been a hard thing to be in a different country, in a different language, in a different culture every 2 months and figure it out. But just going through those rhythms, it really does make you dependent on one another, dependent on the Lord, just trusting, like, we never know what we're doing. We always feel like we're playing catch up. But all we're doing really is we're just catching up to what God's already doing. Yeah. And so I think those are the joyful stories. What's really fun is, God's already pursuing his lost sheep, and we're just kind of catching up with research. We're just connecting people so that those people can be discipled. Yeah. So it's just been a joy to see God move, to get to do all of this together. I get a big picture for what God's doing all over the place.
Yeah.
So this morning, we were debriefing your last outing, your last time out there in the field, and there was one people group you were talking about that was just really encouraging to hear what the Lord was doing and how His faithfulness and even the Lord's people being faithful. So you guys mind sharing about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking for a people group, right, who used to be nomadic. And so this research is 30 to 50 years old of a nomadic tribe who used to do this artwork that is more than likely out of date now. We did not have high hopes. We definitely thought that
it was a puppet show, right?
Yeah, it's like this
before TVs. They were the entertainment for the village, right?
Yeah. So this explain what the group does?
Yeah, they make essentially leather puppets from goat skin. They paint them, and then they put up a backdrop, and so it's like a puppet show. So the light's shining behind, and it's going through these puppets, and they have music. They have whole plays that they've done. It's all telling stories of Hindu gods and goddesses and just their religion and their faith, but they have a lot of fun doing it. So we got to see one of the shows, and it was cool to see their passion, but it is all about Hindu gods.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking for this artwork, and even as we began doing research to see where we might be able to start trying to find this group, most articles were saying that it's a dying art, and they don't really know where people live. They might be in a few of these villages or cities, and so we just started going.
And background, speaking of This Is Hard, so we were actually given 2 groups for this 6 weeks. A lot of things happened that were different than usual. And when we started looking for this group, it was actually just Caleb and the partner because I was in the hospital. And so even just these little things of, I honestly had low expectations because of how the trip was starting, and how it finished was not how I thought it was going to start. So honestly, I wasn't even a part of the start, and Caleb and a partner started looking several days before I was even a part of this. So you can start with.
Yeah, definitely. That's even harder. I think Catherine is very joyful and brings people in. It's easier for her to start conversations. And so not having her.
She said she wasn't going to talk in this podcast.
That's right. I got to carry the weight,
Yep.
But I was just we were already kind of tired. It was towards the end of our trip. Just some things had gotten delayed. So we're tired. But we just started going to villages and just faced rejection for like 4 days straight, where our habit was going to the oldest people of the village, because that's the only people prior who we had found who'd even heard of this artwork of doing puppet shows. And so we'd go find those aunties and uncles who were sitting on a doorstep and ask them, have you ever heard of this art? And they remember, oh yeah, when I was anywhere from 5 to 10, they came through my village, but they always came from somewhere else, and I don't know where they went. And so we just heard that day after day after day, and
long bus rides.
Long bus rides. It's 100 degrees with humidity, and so I'm just sweating, trying to find joy in it, But Catherine was feeling better, so we're like, all right, we'll go back out. We'll go with Catherine, and we sent an update to we have a group back home just praying for us. Which we don't want to blow them up every day, but usually once a week we send something. And so it's kind of timed out that we sent saying, hey, we're looking for this group. We've had no luck. Would you pray, one, that we would continue to be diligent in this work, but that also God would just like open doors, right? Direct us to where we need to go.
Yeah.
And so we start off, it kind of is the same thing. We're in the first auto, and our driver says, have you ever heard of this? No, not really. All right, so we get to one place and we hop at another one, and we ask him, have you heard of this group or who do this artwork? And he goes, that actually sounds kind of familiar. Like, well, that's the first thing. And he's 30, 40. He goes, I'll call my uncle. I'll see if he knows anything. I'm like, okay. And he goes, actually, as we're getting into this village, let me just start asking for you. And so our driver's pulling up to a random group of people, and he just goes, excuse me, have you ever heard of this group? And they're like, no. He goes, all right, and he keeps driving, and he'd go to another group, and finally we meet these 3 older guys, and we ask, hey, do you know this group? And they said, yeah, they live in the next village over. So then once again, our auto driver, he's on the hunt now.
You had a new teammate.
He had a new teammate. Literally, he's like, we got this.
He was getting out of the auto, going into people's homes and asking, getting back in.
Yeah. And so he takes us to this other village. And the same thing, as we're working our way in, he's like, do you know these guys? And they go, yeah, keep going. They're on the next street. And he goes, all right. And so finally does it one more time to this guy. He goes, "Hey, do you know this people group?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's me." And the auto driver goes, "Awesome, they want to talk to you." And he just kind of stops the auto and he goes, "Here you go, you're here." And so, yeah, I mean, one, praise the Lord, right? That all of a sudden we found this group that had been tough, and we were kind of at our own limit, and we're like, I don't know how many more days we can do this. And so we get to go into this house, and there's 25, maybe 30 people from this group. And
all piled into a very small house.
All piled there to go look at some white Americans, you know.
Yep.
We're like in a zoo. But yeah, they're just kind of figuring out, who are we? Why are we there? And we just got to start meeting them, right, and understanding their culture. And that is one of our favorite things, is we meet a lot of people, and sometimes we get tired having to talk so much, but it is a joy just seeing people from completely different life experiences than us, who have different outlooks on life. Just different upbringings. And so we get to learn from them, and I think even benefit from hearing so many people's stories. So we just started a conversation with them, and they brought up their artwork. "Hey, we heard you've been doing this stuff. Do y'all still do that today?" And then they go, "Yeah." And they just start pulling out all this artwork and these puppets that they have made, and we're handing them and telling stories about them. So that was a really, really special time to be like, these people are still around, and here's a people group.
Yeah. And Caleb always says that storytellers often listen to other stories. So as we're listening to their stories and hearing about who they are, then when we transition to getting to talk about Jesus and share the gospel, they were completely welcoming, and they listened, they were quiet, they didn't interrupt, and they actually even applauded afterwards. And because we have some fun motions that go with it, so they were definitely engaged in that. So it was neat to be able to share with them, and some of them had definitely heard, but most of that group were not believers. They were following the Hindu gods. So then, even just in their household, you know, they had some pictures of various gods and deities, and also one of Jesus. And so you could even use that to kind of lead into, "Hey, do you know the story of that guy?" And they're like, "No," you know, but can I tell you? And then got to share this whole story. But just then, because of our interest in who they were and their artwork, one of the guys goes, "Hey, my dad lives in a village, you know, a little ways away. Would you want to go meet them tonight, learn more?" And they even have this kind of community hall where they could put on a show for you. And we said, "Sure." And so we went and I think grabbed lunch somewhere, and then went and met them later that evening. And they had the whole thing set up where they had their screen and lights coming through, and some guys to play music, as well as multiple people behind the screen who are kind of, some are acting with the puppets and, you know, exchanging them. Some are doing these voices. There's this one older guy who, he was watching the show. You could tell he used to do this. And just progressively, as they kept telling some stories, he kept inching his way closer and closer to the screen until he was kind of peeking back, you know, to make sure that the young guys were doing it right. And then eventually he was like, "I'm going to take this over." And so he stood up and he started singing some of the songs with them. And it was just really fun just seeing their joy. Right? This is their history and their culture. And to have other people interested in it. It was like our joy to see it, but their joy to show it off for us as well. Yeah. Any questions about that? Or do you want to transition to...
Well, I mean, praise God, you were able to share the gospel with 25 plus people right there. Yep. Full gospel, just listening. I think you said they were just quiet, like no interruptions, listening intently.
Very rare.
Yeah, it is very rare. That's right. Yeah, just a complete God moment. The Lord totally set up that entire thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about long term for this group? What are you thinking?
Yeah. So we're going back, excited, you know, that it's been a week and we found this group. And so our trip was ending. So we had one more day. And so we started praying again. You know, the people back home started praying, and the next day we found them. And so we were just really, before we even went out, we wanted to pray a lot and just say, "God, can you do a work amongst this people? And one day, instead of telling Hindu stories with these puppets, could you tell Bible stories and use it even as a evangelistic tool? And instead of traveling around to, you know, festivals and different weddings, could you go to churches and VBSs and Christmas things and tell stories, just to, you know, use their passion. They're talented. They really were good. They were making the whole crowd laugh when they were doing the stuff. So they're just engaging in it, and it unites a community. So we were just praying that, and I think as we were praying, we were saying, man, this is a big dream. You know, like maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, we could see this community being turned around. And we go back to one of those guys who really...
Because they had invited us for dinner, so we show up to the guy's house. He's like, what are you talking about? So the plan that we thought we had, so we came back to this group, wanting to have a meal with them, and they totally forgot. So then it
How many times does that happen, by the way?
Daily.
Probably every time. And then they start cooking when you show up. They're like, oh, I guess we'll start that.
But culturally, they're fine with the fact that they forgot they invited you. Yeah.
So that's how it started, but then it diverted us to go into another person's house, and then this is where I feel like the story picks up, was because the plan shifted. Obviously, the Lord's doing.
Always shift. That's right. Yeah. So we showed up hungry and left hungry, but also fulfilled in a different way. So we show up and we go into this guy's house, and we notice he doesn't have any idol pictures, right? No pictures of gods or other. There's just like a picture of Jesus on as you're going into their house. And so he said, hey, we noticed you have a Jesus picture. You know, what's that about?
Is he Caucasian?
He was. He did not look like this people group.
Glowing.
Definitely coming on the clouds. But he literally just goes, well, I'm a baptized believer. And we said, what?
What?
Yeah. And he goes, me and my whole family. He goes, we all go to church all the time. In fact, there's like 30 of us that all go to church together.
Yeah.
And so, right, sometimes a big struggle is you meet people who might be interested in Jesus. They kind of like Jesus because, maybe he can give me something, and I'll just follow him because it's one more God. Why not?
Right.
Maybe I'll pray to him as well. Maybe he'll answer. But this group, and what we started to find out, was a lot of people from this family were wholly committed to Christ.
Wow.
And they're like, we tell these Hindu stories because that's our history and we can make money from it. But we actually don't believe any of this. Like, we just kind of tell the stories. But we're believers. We go to church every Sunday, and it's an hour away where they go to church. They said, if we can, we try to make it on a Friday night as well. I think there's 2 auto drivers amongst this group.
They all pile in.
So they all pile in, 8 people in an auto and head to church. And so... Yeah,
and typically when they say they're believers, as we start asking about their stories and their testimonies, they always bring out their Bibles, and they're like wrapped carefully in a bag and another bag, and they're like, this is our Bible. So they love their Bibles. And then we got to ask, do you know any worship songs? Can you sing us a song? So then 10 of them all sang a song, and so that was just a beautiful, unique moment as well.
Yeah. So. And a lot of times with other people will ask, oh, you're a Christian, or you claim to be. What does that mean? Who is Jesus? And they can't say anything. Does your life look any different since you're following Jesus? Do you go to church? And they're like, no. But this group, like Catherine was saying, is, here's our Bibles. We read them as a family. Yeah. Here's songs. Here's what we learned last week at church. And so this group, right, that 2 days ago we didn't think existed, all of a sudden we met over 30 baptized believers. And who had some pretty wild testimonies, which we can get into in just a second. But from that man's house, I also love their dependence on prayer. We're showing up, spending some time with them, and the main thing they want from you is like, hey, do you mind just praying for us and our family? And we prayed, and they go, that's awesome. And so there's someone else there, and they go, hey, can you come to my house and pray for my family? And so we went to 12 different families of all baptized believers who are all rejecting, right, the local religion, following Christ, trying to be committed to him, who are just desperate for prayer. And we just got to go into homes and start hearing some of their stories.
Yeah. So I guess this is probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So we have just gone from house to house. Yes, we're a little hungry, and we're all sitting around a circle, and we just got to hear the testimony of 3 different guys. And one of the men, he had tried to commit suicide twice. And so I don't know what happened the first time, but I know one of the times he had tried to drown himself, and then somebody picked him up from a boat. The boat just happened to be there. And so the man was convinced that the Lord had saved his life because one of the first believers in that village was praying for that man. And so then he was able to lead that man to Christ, and then his family. And then another one of the guys, he got bit by a scorpion, and sadly, the doctor of the area gave him the wrong shot. And so it didn't do anything for the scorpion bite. He went into a coma, and so they transferred him to a different hospital that has more resources, and the doctor essentially said there's nothing we can do about that. He's too far gone. And long story short, the real doctor of that hospital goes out of the room, and then another guy comes in claiming to be a doctor, and you shared the...
Yeah, he just kind of goes and, picks up his hand and checks his pulse and just says, "You're going to be okay."
Yeah.
And sets his hand down and walks out the room.
Yeah. So the family thought he was a doctor, and then their son is healed from this coma and the scorpion bite that the real doctor said he's too far gone. So then when the real doctor came back in the room, he was shocked to find the son awake, and
he's like, "I'm the only doctor in this place, right?"
Yeah. And so the guy was like, "I have no idea who this doctor is," and even the family didn't know. It wasn't like a friend. And so they said that the man had just walked into the reception desk, asked for his name, went to his room, healed him, and walked out. So
That's awesome.
I mean, there's a few others who just came from a background of drunkenness and anger to now being the one who's praying and leading others to Christ. And so we're sitting there, and they're happy because we're there and they want us to pray over them, and we're just amazed at how God has already worked amongst this group and getting to hear their testimonies, and then getting to start encourage them and cast vision. I mean, like, your stories and your testimony is incredible and powerful. Have you ever thought about telling those stories to people, and stories from the Bible? That you're telling stories from Hindu gods and some different historical things, but have you ever thought about telling stories from Scripture which are true and just as miraculous and incredible stories? Like, what would it be like to see one of these puppet shows and the parting of the Red Sea, the 10 plagues, or creation, and David and Goliath. I mean, there's really cool stuff leading all the way up to Christ that they could then still use their artwork, their passion, what they love to do, their history for the kingdom. And I think we were just encouraged that in one day when we thought we were just going to have dinner with some people and praying with a vision of 3 to 5 years in the future, like, that's a lot closer than what we originally thought.
And even our partner, after hearing story after story of praying to God for healing with this coma, and then somebody coming in to heal him, our partner even said, we feel like this group is saved for something big. Like, the Lord has been doing miraculous stories in each one of their lives, and they all just happen to be believers in this one area. There's a community hall where they could do a prayer night. They could share these stories and have people come. So I don't know. We were all sitting there amazed. Like, God has you here for a purpose. Like, He saved your life. He brought you back from a coma. He saved your life from drunkenness. And so there's a reason. And He wants to use you. So,
So right now you've got roughly 30 believers in this people group. Still so many more in the people group that are not. And they're traveling an hour to go to church, right? You're going to go back. What's your vision for these people?
Starting small, little baby steps. But hopefully, and Lord willing, and very prayerfully, to see a church in that own village, led by that people group that can continue to reach others. And so I think what we're hoping to suggest is that Friday night prayer time that they're like, sometimes we just can't make it because it's an hour away to go to this church, saying, well, hey, you have this community hall right by where all of you live. Can y'all start doing Friday night prayer time on your own?
And we'll train you up.
Train you up. And can this then lead into a Bible study? And could this Bible study then start looking like a worship service? And then could this, hey, what's the difference between this worship service and the other one? And so we would love to just see a natural church started in that town and village amongst them.
And leaders and elders among that.
Raised up.
Among that people.
Exactly.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And even... Again, this is dreaming, but as we were working with the local teams and networks, because this is not something that we just want to come in and do, but we're partnering with believers who are already trained in that area. So then to work alongside them to bring them to be able to train these people long term, because we have to leave in a few weeks, so they could stay there for years. But seeing this group discipled from hearing stories of creation of Christ, and then maybe seeing as we're sharing these stories and they're studying amongst themselves, maybe they make a few puppets from that story, and then hopefully a collection of puppets that can be made and maybe funded by local churches in the area for the resources. And so, yeah, seeing discipleship there, local people equipping and training, and also potentially creating puppets and shows for them to be able to use through evangelism. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So a lot of people would, when they hear about what we do, right? I think this is even Caleb's thoughts sometimes, right?
I'm curious.
What you about to say?
Like in 2 months, what could you possibly even do among a people, right? But you guys, it's not that you started the work. The Lord was already working, right? But you're taking a look and assessing what the Lord has already done, and you're saying, what does it need for that work to sustain among this people, to actually have local churches and even have leaders among this people group that could sustain the gospel presence long term, and even taking into consideration that there are national brothers and sisters nearby that are like-minded that could contribute long after you're gone, and bringing them into that whole equation and introducing them and letting them be a part of the beginnings of some training and discipleship in that people group. Sounds to me like you can do a lot in a couple months.
Yeah. I think we've just grown into understanding like really our place, right, in God's heart for the nations. That, I mean, first and foremost, none of us are the answer. Like you're saying, God's already at work. But what we're able to do is we're kind of able to bridge people together. And we're almost like a billboard, that when we go into a little village, everyone knows that
that's right.
we're there. And so we can meet so many people, and people are sometimes so shocked they kind of skip over why we're necessarily there. And we're able to just go through a lot of people and places and see where God is working on, and find groups to then connect them to those long-term teams, right? And Lord willing, even saving them time that we spent a whole week facing rejection to find this one place. And now we can go to a local pastor and say, hey, instead of taking a whole week and not finding anything and having people kind of question, why are you here? You're a pastor. What are you doing around here? We have a single contact, and he shows up, and they open the Word and they start a Bible study immediately.
That's right.
So,
and sometimes it takes that perseverance and dedication to keep going, keep seed sowing, filtering through people who are interested, and then finding one who, man, the Lord is working, and now how can we train them? I'm thinking about our first group that we went to, and so really, I mean, there was just red lights, but we did find a few believers, and now the local team was able to go back to that area and start a Bible study amongst them. And
Praise God.
In the moment, it didn't feel like a ton. It was like, man, we were there for several weeks. We went to a lot of villages, got a lot of rejection, but we found a few believers, and there's no church amongst those people at all. It's 15,000 way high up in the mountains. And now because of that, there could be the starting foundation of a church. So, but that's also because of the teams that are there willing to do that hard long-term follow-up. So
but they didn't necessarily have the time that you did to go do the hard part, right? And I've been in that situation. You know, I have 4 kids. I don't have the time either to just go looking till I find a group. And so praise God for this program and this project that's bridging the gap and helping our teams on the ground for kickstarting long-term church planting projects among these people groups. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, I can't wait for other people to hear this story. This is the second time I've heard it today, and I'm encouraged and ready to run through a wall right now. So thank you guys. Thank you for your faithfulness.
Hopefully there's a part 2 of
that's right.
an update on work over the next few months.
Absolutely. It's my podcast. I'll do whatever I want.
There we go.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man.
Yep.